Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on this live stream. My name is Hassam Hassinan. I'm the lead for Microsoft Reactor in the Middle East and Africa. And Microsoft Reactors are hubs for founders and developers to meet, learn, connect to local peers and learn from the industry experts and the open source community all about what's happening in tech and how they can work on exciting projects and integrate cool functionalities into their projects. And on this live streams, we have been hosting different topics, data science, machine learning, AI, name it, diverse topics across different technologies. And we're hosting a number of advocates and speakers, again, from the Microsoft ecosystem and the open source community to come and tell us more about what is happening in tech. And this week, we continue with an exciting series about the Microsoft Graph and Microsoft Graph Challenge. Before we begin, I'd just like to note that this event is following the Microsoft Code of Conduct, which is basically summarized in this short points. We just need to be aware of each other, friendly and patient, welcoming and respectful in the comments, open to all questions and viewpoints, understanding of each other's differences, and kind and considerate to others at all time. Again, we're all here to learn, and this is a learning journey. So let's keep it engaging in the chat and ask as many questions relevant to today's topic. I would love to invite on the screen Aisha to tell us more about this series and what is going to happen on the second week. Aisha, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Hussam. Thanks for having us in Reactor. We're so excited to jump into week 2 of 30 days of Microsoft Graph, and I will walk you through about the challenge. And afterwards, we have a special guest. He is a senior program manager in Microsoft Graph product team, and he will walk us through how to build exciting apps with Microsoft Graph live. So we will literally see this week how to run the graph in our project, and also the rest of the week you will have your learning materials to understand how to do this by yourself as well in self-paced learning. Okay, so let's get started before losing any time.
That's super exciting. And again, for everyone who's watching us, we're streaming live. You can ask us questions through the chat, and our team is moderating and looking at this. And there will be a discussion towards the end where Aisha and the guest speakers and the advocates will discuss all these points. So for a start, would love to have you posting and telling us where are you watching us from. I'm going to go off stage and Aisha can continue with today's session.
Awesome. Thank you, Hussam. And please share where you're from and also what are your interests in technology. We definitely want to get in touch with you and engage in the chat. So feel free to leverage the chat. There are also MVPs joining us today to help us in the chat. So don't hesitate to ask your questions. They will be here to answer all of your questions. And at the end, we will have the Q&A session as well. Okay. Let's get into it. Today's agenda, obviously, we will get to know each other a little bit better, and then we will walk you through the challenge. This is the second week of the challenge. We only had 4 days in the 30 days of Microsoft Graph. If you are interested in joining just right now, it's not too late. Register to the challenge, and we will show you how to do that, where to find all the learning materials in this session too. Don't hesitate to jump into week 2 without doing week 1. There's learning space for everyone. So if you want to learn more about Microsoft Graph, again, you can join the challenge just right now. After we share with you the learning material of week 2, we will introduce you our program manager from Microsoft Graph team, and then he will walk us through how to build exciting apps with Microsoft Graph Live. And at the end, we will share with you some learning materials, and you will be free to learn on your own pace rest of the week. A quick introduction, meet the team part. My name is Ayça Baş. I'm a senior cloud advocate at Microsoft. I'm based in Dubai. I'm originally Turkish. I love building solutions across Microsoft Cloud technologies. I work at Microsoft as a premier field engineer for 4 years, helping customers build Microsoft solutions by using Azure. And now in my current job, I love building solutions using Azure per platform, including Microsoft Graph and Teams. So my specialty is Graph and Teams, building solutions using Graph and Teams. I'm a alumni student ambassador. We used to call it student partner. And I love sharing what I learn in the social platforms. If you want to connect and learn what I'm doing day to day, you can connect with me on Twitter and LinkedIn. I also want to introduce you my colleague who is partnering me for this initiative, 30 Days of Microsoft Graph. Let's have Samolese on screen and let him introduce himself as well. Hi, Samolese.
Hi, Aisha. Thank you so much. I'm so excited because we have the second week of the Microsoft 30 Days of Microsoft Graph Challenge happening this week. And hopefully, people are already excited that we spoke to last week. And even if you're new, we have exciting stuff still, and we have some guidance on what you can do to get started. My name is Somela Zadigo, and I am a cloud advocate at Microsoft, and I'm based out of South Africa. So, just like Hassan said, just let us know on the chat on where you're joining from. And I'm currently from South Africa. And what I love doing is actually building solutions using the Power Platform, Teams, and Azure. And even today, as much as we are going through the Microsoft Graph Challenge, I also would like to entice my skills into what Microsoft Graph actually has and see how I can combine that with the Power Platform. And I know there's a lot of students and there's a lot of people who are trying to be innovative with the Power Platform and all of those things. And also, just like Aisha, I also share whatever I learned with everyone else on my social media. You can find me on Twitter, and you can also find me on LinkedIn, where I connect with everyone else, learn from them, and also share my knowledge around that. So, Aisha, what do we have in store for people who are new or for people who don't remember what are the first few steps to actually go through when you want to get started with this specific challenge?
Great question. We definitely don't want the current participants in the challenge, but we want to quickly walk you all through what is 30 Days of Microsoft Graph Challenge and how you can get started. We have 5 weeks in this challenge. We started in November 1st and we will end the challenge in November 30th. And throughout this challenge, the first week is already completed and we completed learn materials. It was three learn modules we completed in week 1. Don't worry about it if you didn't complete it, because these materials are already available. You can join the challenge right now and you can start learning from week 1, and you can jump into week 2 whenever you're ready. We all have throughout this challenge we have self-paced learning materials, so we don't want to rush any of you to spend any of your work hours or study hours to this challenge. So whenever you're free, you can complete these challenge materials on your own free time. If you want to join this challenge right now, you can go to ak.ms/30 days of MS Graph /register, and you just need to register the challenge. The reason why you need to register, because we have really exciting prizes we want to share with you all. We have great mentorship sessions from leadership of the advocacy and also directors of Microsoft Graph team. We also give away really exciting gifts, and you can find all the information about the prices in our onboarding material. If you are interested in learning more, you just need to go to our challenge page. Someleze will walk you through the challenge page where you can find a challenge page. But before you just get into it, make sure to register so we know that you're in the challenge and you are eligible for all of the exciting prizes. You can just scan the QR code to do that right now. And when you join the challenge, the step 2 is completing the prerequisites. We have some onboarding materials. You can go to the link and review what is needed to start into this challenge. First off, you will need Microsoft 365 developer account. Of course, if you have Microsoft 365 account, you may try to test your projects with your existing accounts, but it might be a little bit challenging for you. Microsoft provides a free sandbox for developers who are interested in learning more about Microsoft technologies. So you can go to the Microsoft 365 developer program and create your own sandbox, and you will be the admin. You will have your own tenant, and you can test everything for free by using that account. And as long as you use it, it will be there. You can just continue using the same account for your other projects. And you can just go to this link provided. You will see how to do the setup one step by step. There's a video in the link, and you will just need to follow the steps in the video, and it will be done. If you're a student, you need to activate GitHub Student Developer account. If you already have a GitHub account, you can use the existing account. If you're not a student, you don't need to do this step. It's optional. And for students, we also have free Azure credit. You can activate free Azure for student credit by just following the link. If you're not a student, you don't have to do this again. To complete week 1 and week 2, you will not need Azure credit. But in week 3, we will show you some end-to-end solutions where you may need to use some of the Azure products. But you can definitely complete the entire challenge without needing Azure consumption in general. It's just the end-to-end, some of the end-to-end scenarios may require Azure for you to experiment with Microsoft Graph too. And step 3, and it's the main place, how to get started, where to see what we need to do in the challenge. So Liz, can you walk us through where should we learn more about what sort of learning materials we have, basically everything end to end?
Yes, of course, Aisha. Thanks for that. Yeah, so this is the landing page that we have for the 30 days of MS Graph. You actually go to aka.ms /30 days of MS Graph challenge. And then you come to this specific landing page, and you'd find that there's a roadmap of the entire 30 days of MS Graph challenge, and also the introduction about the challenge itself. And you'd find that on the kickoff tab or section, you actually have the link to register for the challenge. So for those who are actually new to this specific challenge, you can go onto this link, which will then take you to another page where Aisha showed you. And obviously, you will need to accept official rules if you actually want to be part of the prize draw, because obviously, what's a challenge without prizes? And I know I love prizes whenever I join specific cloud skills challenges and what's up for grabs. So if you click on join the challenge, this will then have this specific statement that says I have read and agreed to the official rules. And if you click on that link, it will take you to a form if you want to be entered onto the draw for the prizes that are up for grabs. And then obviously you go through the process of filling out your information and the details on the form itself. Then right after that, obviously you then you check this box and click on continue. You can carry on by continuing if you don't want to be part of the prize draw, but still want to be part of the Cloud Skills Challenge so that you can be able to learn. You can click on continue, and then you complete the learn modules. Okay. That's basically it on how to get started on that part in terms of registering. You'd find that on the landing page, you actually have all of these resources are available to you. We also have onboarding resources in which Aisha has just mentioned and spoke about in terms of getting your Microsoft 365 developer account set up, and also for students who actually want to claim the Azure for students for free, then they can go through the onboarding blog post, which is also a link here on the landing page. And there is one specific thing that you would actually have whenever you are part of a specific challenge, right? Questions, questions, questions. What you can do in this case for our challenge, you go to the GitHub discussions, and then if it'll take you to this new tab where you are able to ask any questions that you might have about MS Graph, you might have about setting up. Jefflet, Aisha, and the rest of the team are there to answer your questions. And you can see there's a lot of discussions that's already happening currently. And if you're new, you can come onto the specific GitHub discussions, and then you can be able to submit whatever question you have, and also introduce yourself, because I know last week I promised people that I was going to introduce myself, and I did. Hopefully everyone else saw that. So if you haven't introduced yourself on the GitHub discussions, just make sure you come here and you actually introduce yourself. Again, how you can be able to do that, there's a link here on the onboarding resources. You can click on GitHub discussions. It will take you to GitHub discussions as well. And you can see what other people are asking. You can see how where people are joining from for this specific challenge. You can see what others are doing so that you can learn from them as well. Right. Within the learning page itself, you can go through the different resources that are available. Just like Aisha had mentioned, this is more of a self-paced learning type of material. We do not want to rush you when you're part of a challenge. So there is resources for you that you can use. So for an example, if you missed week 1, you can find those resources here. And there's actually links to the live reactor sessions that we actually had just last week. And also obviously links to the materials and the resources that are on Microsoft Learn about Microsoft Graph. And obviously, if you're already keeping up with everyone else and you're part of week 2, you can be able to access the learning materials for week 2, where you want to, for an example, access this specific session itself. You can click on that link, which is live, and then obviously it will take you to this specific session. So I don't want to click on that link. It will actually show my face, me explaining everything else to you, but those are the learning materials that are available to you. And it even goes further to actually show you what other learning materials you have to be expecting for this challenge for week 3, week 4, and also week 5. And obviously, at the end, you'll be able to meet the entire team that is behind this specific 30 days of MS Graph challenge, so that you can see how everyone else can be able to learn. Hopefully that actually covers everything that you need to know about this learning page. Today, we do not want to be going to different links and typing in on the tabs of our browser. We actually wanted to show you that all of these links are actually in a central place, which is this landing page that you can be able to access. So without further ado, I'm interested to what Aisha actually mentioned earlier on, that we have a special guest today, and I want to learn what they actually have for us, and I want to know more about the session and everything else that they're going to walk us through. So Aisha, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Solis, for walking us through all the challenge and everything. If you're just joining this live session, just go to aka.ms/30 days of MS Graph, and then you can see all the details about our challenge. Without further ado, I want to introduce you Sebastian Levert, and he is the product he is from the Microsoft Graph product team, and he will show us how to build exciting apps using Microsoft Graph live in today's session. Hi Seb, how are you?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm actually very excited to be here today. I'm so excited that I even wore my giraffe suit to make sure that
Yeah, I
I
love the
am.
outfit.
Yeah, there you go. If you don't mind, I'll just remove the head from it because it's actually extremely warm. But I'll keep the rest for the rest of the session.
Awesome, that works as long as you keep the rest. And Seb, there are a lot of people new. Some of them are joining the challenge since last week. Can you introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little bit about Microsoft Graph team as well? And then we can jump into seeing Microsoft Graph in action.
Awesome. Let's do that. I love it. So my name is Sébastien Levert. I am a senior product manager at Microsoft. I work in the Microsoft Graph developer experience team. So we are the team that builds all the experiences for developers. That include the Graph Explorer, that includes our different SDKs, that include the Microsoft Graph Toolkit, that includes lots of our open API work that we do in the open, our docs, our tons of things that we are building really to make developers' lives easier to connect and take advantage of Microsoft Graph. Prior to joining Microsoft, I was an Office development MVP, so I was on the other side, building solutions using Microsoft Graph, and literally fell in love with the Graph. So that's why I joined the Graph team. But before that, I was an MVP for 6 years, focusing on client-side technologies. And little hint here, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to build applications on the client side as a JavaScript app to connect to the Microsoft Graph. I'm based out of Montreal, beautiful Canada. We're lucky. We still don't have snow. Actually, this weekend it was 23 Celsius, so it was like a little bit
Wow.
of mind blowing for November. Um, love the city, love the country, but also love to connect with everybody from the world. So that's why I love to be in these kind of sessions. I've been advocating for a long time for TypeScript and JavaScript. I really believe in the power of the JavaScript ecosystem to build really powerful applications, and that's what I want to show. Today, feel free to connect with me on Twitter at Sebastien Levert and on LinkedIn. Send the invites over there, and yeah, today I'm very excited to jump in and be able to show as many cool things as I can in 30-ish minutes.
Wow, that's cool. And we want to highlight that we also have Get Started with Microsoft Graph session. You can check out the link. It's available in our landing page, 30 Days of MS Graph page. You can see on demand how Rebeb explained us how to get started with Graph. What is Graph as a concept? Today, we will be more deep diving and actually live coding a little bit, right, Seb?
Absolutely. Hopefully, we're not being hit by the demo effect today. Hopefully, there's everything will be live. I don't have backup video, so let's see how that works. But usually, it goes pretty well. I wanted to start with kind of showing you a little bit what we're going to talk about today. We're going to heavily leverage one library that is built by our team. I'm actually the PM on that product, and that library is the JavaScript SDK for Microsoft Graph. Think about this as an API client to simplify your life when connecting to Microsoft Graph, integrating authentication out of the box, making sure that we play nicely with Microsoft Graph, that we automatically respect all the different error codes that are sent back by Microsoft Graph in case you're doing a mistake or in case the server is busy. We're doing all of that management for you so you don't have to code any of that. We're also simplifying a lot of tasks that can be a little bit hard to code, like for example, uploading files to Graph could be considered to be a heavy task. So the Graph SDK, the Graph JavaScript SDK, is really what should power your app to connect to Microsoft Graph and making sure that you really get the full value of Microsoft Graph without scratching your head a little bit too much. So um, we're going to use that. I'm going to show you a little bit of how to get this started, how to get it into your app, and so on and so forth. But what I want to do is to start where we left last time. Rabeb did a great job at showing what is the value of, I think, even though I'm building lots of products at Microsoft, one of my favorite tools still is Graph Explorer, right? And Graph Explorer is really an amazing thing. So let me go and use the Graph Explorer tab that I already have on my browser. And here I'm not even logged in yet. I'm going to log in, but I'm not logged in. And I can use Graph Explorer to explore Microsoft Graph. I have tons of getting started queries, and all of these queries are categorized with what you might be looking for. Maybe you want to do some um, uh, things with to do. Maybe you want to do some things with insight. Maybe you want to do something with batching. You decide. But what I want to do today is get started and do the simplest of the call that you can do to Microsoft Graph is getting your profile. So what I do here, I just click on this, it changed the URL on top, and I'm just going to hit run query. Here you're going to get a response. It's great and all, but one of the things that might be a little bit tricky is how do I get from Graph Explorer to my app? How do I get that code? How do I get this capability um, inside my code that I'm writing in JavaScript? Well, we are here for you. We're providing a lot of these capabilities as part of the Microsoft Graph. So for example, I can go to the code snippets and select JavaScript. And now I know that I need to create a auth provider, and we're going to come back to what is an auth provider. So that allows you to connect with, for example, Azure Identity to Microsoft Graph with your own user. I just create a new Graph client using the client.init. And then afterwards, I'm just using the client.api.get. And here I pass in the URL or the endpoint that I'm looking for. So what's the value here? The value here is that you don't have to build all of that really, really hard to build fetch library and authentication and making sure then you refresh your access tokens and all of that. The Graph SDK will take care of this for you. So as you browse Graph Explorer, you want to go to my mail, for example. Well, same thing. It also automatically builds the client.api for you. So when you're not exactly sure of what is the endpoint and how you should frame that in JavaScript, always go back to this tab here. It's very, very, very useful for getting all the right SDK parts available for you. So that is number one. You know how to bring this code into your app. But let's do a little bit of what can you really do with Microsoft Graph. Yes, we know we can write code, but what's the result of that code, right? I think it's important to know what are the in-depth capabilities and potentially even like how can we dream our users about the content that lives in Microsoft 365. Either you're a student, either you are a worker, either you are an information worker, any type of users will benefit from Graph. So let's go first and let's go to my third tab here, which is called upcoming meetings. And this one will actually look at some code to look at how this is built. But let me do the cooking show, right? I'm a big food lover here, so I always love to see what I'm gonna cook before I actually eat it. So let's go on and let's click on login. First part, very important, the login part. The Microsoft Graph is always an authenticated API. You need to be logged in to be able to access the data that lives in Microsoft Graph. So it's all of your apps will always start with, in any ways, you're going to have to start with a login. You're going to have to be logged in either in your Microsoft 365 tenant. You're going to have to be logged in a single page application that you build, a SharePoint framework web part, a Teams app, name it. You're going to have to be logged in. There are multiple ways to log in. We're going to look at that. But the first thing is to log in. So what do I do when I want to log in? I click login. And here, I'm going to be redirected, and I'm going to select what is the account that I want to use. In my case, I'm the admin of that tenant right here. I'm going to pass in my password, and I'm going to be, yes, I want to remember who I am. And now I'm doing that beautiful, right, Aicha? How beautiful is this, right? Let's start small.
Obviously, everyone wants to get more than the profile picture, so there we go. It's more than the profile picture.
Exactly. Let's start with this. So, what happened here is we used Microsoft Graph to get our upcoming meetings for today, including the subject and the participants, and we basically display them in a very rough HTML way. No, it's not sexy. No, it's not necessarily great, but it's very, very useful to go through some of the code parts that might be useful. So let me go back and let me open up Visual Studio Code where I have this solution loaded, and let's look a little bit at what we're doing. So let me go here. Let me close that second tab before I forget it. So the first thing you will want to do is to create a very simple let me close that one up. A very simple HTML page. This HTML page has a simple title, has a couple of scripts in there. And this is very important. The first script is MSAL browser, the Microsoft Authentication Library. This is the core of our authentication. The Microsoft Graph Client, our SDK, does not provide authentication per se, but it integrates natively with authentication providers, especially the ones that are provided by the Microsoft Authentication Library. So you can always use this, add it as a script tag. You're more of a TypeScript person, or you work more using npm packages, same thing, npm install msal browser. You can do it on both sides, but here I wanted to make it as simple as possible. So I wanted to stay in a very simple HTML page, no preference around the framework or around the UI or whatsoever. So first, the msal
So,
browser.
Seb, can we
Yes,
say that this is for the web developers then? The basic you can get. You
yes.
obviously need login authentication. So the basic you can do is the MSAL browser.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's all integrated. It knows how to redirect you from your website to another, to the login.microsoft online, where you will be able to put in your username and password securely within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So think about how you're done with building sign-in forms and login forms. You leave that to Microsoft thanks to the MSAL browser, and you basically just get back an access token that will power the rest of your experience. The same thing can also be done with MSAL for Node. So if you're more of a backend developer, you want to do the exact same thing. You won't be using MSAL browser because it will not make any sense. But you will be able to use Azure Identity and the Microsoft Authentication Library to do the exact same thing. Just going to be a little bit different, but the way it works will exactly be the same. But today, let's focus on web devs as our scenarios today. The second thing that you will want to do is to load our Graph JavaScript SDK. So we have a CDN that enables you to bring the SDK straight into your app, and it's going to be available globally onto your page, and you're going to get the latest and greatest of it. So now we're at version 3.0.3, and you're going to get that version straight from this CDN. Afterwards, you're going to want to also use one of what we provide, our MSAL browser auth provider. I told you earlier that the Graph SDK orchestrates authentication within Graph. It does not provide the authentication, but it helps with plugging in all the pieces. And that's what exactly this part here will do. And we'll see how we integrate with the MSAL browser auth provider later on. And afterwards, just simple, beautiful styles. You remember, right? It's not the sexiest app, so don't expect a lot of CSS on that.
I didn't think. I'm surprised you use CSS in this code.
Yeah, like, you know what? We could get rid of it, and it would just look even worse. But we have 2 lines of CSS, so I think it does
Perfect.
definitely not. I don't count as a designer here. And let's go through here. I won't go through every single line of code, right? But one of the things that I want to do is to go here to my first bookmark. And the first bookmark is the following. When you build an app with Microsoft Graph, you need to do a configuration of MSAL. And that configuration here enables you to specify 2 things, 2 main things. The first thing is, what are the scopes that you need? How will you connect to Microsoft Graph? Graph is all based out of scope. So when you ask Graph for a token, you have to tell Graph, I'm interested in reading calendar. So give me a token that will allow my user to read the calendar that they have access to. So first, that's what I'm doing here, because this scenario is just for reading calendars, my calendar. And the second thing is to identify which app that you will use in the backend. In the Learn material, you will see how to create your app, how to go on, create your app, make it either single tenant, multi-tenant, and all these things. In this case, I just have it as part of a env file that lives right here. I don't have any secrets, so I can actually show you that. That app ID here is the one that I'm using in that case. I just add it as a variable right away. And then afterwards, I'm creating a new public application, public client application with that MSAL config. We're going to come back later to that MSAL client later, because we will need to have it. Second thing I want to show you is when we are ready to do a graph call, when we're ready to inject ourselves in the graph, we're going to have to do one thing, and we're going to have to say, hey, I want to create a graph client. Use the MSAL capabilities that I created and create myself a graph client. So let's go and see that get graph client right from here. Well, here what you're going to do, you're going to use our MS Graph auth-code MSAL browser authentication provider. These names are sometimes a little bit long, that's okay. Um, and you will want to pass in your MSAL client and the account, the scopes, and the type of interaction. Do you want to have a pop-up or do you want to have a redirect? And here, basically, we're just going to say init this client. So get me an instance of the Microsoft Graph client based on this auth provider. So when I call into Graph, you know how to get my authentication. Until here, no Graph calls have been made, no login screens have been brought up, just simple initialization. And then afterwards, if we go back to our initialization here, we're going to go and we're going to load the upcoming meetings. And this is where it gets really interesting. How do we call into Graph? In this case, we're doing a little bit of I wouldn't say a complex query to Graph, but we're doing a very specific query to Graph, which is the /me/calendar view. So basically, we're setting up, hey, I want to be able to see my calendar based on today, starting today, and ending at midnight tonight. So we're querying Microsoft Graph, and automatically it will order my request by start of the daytime. So the start time of my meetings will be sorted automatically by this. And then afterwards, I do my API call, I do get, and then afterwards, it's up to you to get the result and do whatever you want to do here. Here you see we're doing very simple HTML. We're returning HTML strings based on this with a couple of capabilities in here. But that's really just what the graph is. It's really not necessarily complex, but getting it set up in a nice way will get you very, very far as soon as you get to build these apps. So quick reminder, creating your MSAL configuration and your client. Afterwards, creating your graph client with the auth provider provided by the Microsoft Graph. Afterwards, you call the graph with the client that you got, and automatically this one will get authentication, will redirect if it needs to redirect, will get the data, will return the JSON, and from the JSON, you will be able to use the data and print it, display it straight on the page. So that was our demo number one. Yes, I just sorry.
Perfect. I have one question. So
Yes.
when we saw in Rabeb's demo that in the Graph Explorer there are hundreds of different APIs and hundreds of different data sets we can get, like calendar, Teams chat, and to-do list, Outlook emails, so on and so forth. Like the list goes on. So if we change the API part, can we get the data from the other APIs?
Yes and no. By that I mean, yes, you can definitely change the API part here. For example, I want to go on and get my to-do lists, or even more, I want to get here, I want to get my emails. Mm-hmm. My emails would actually be, and let's do something. Let's go unscripted and see how great this is. I'm going to use a console.log, so that way I'm not playing with the UI. But for example, I could go on here and say, hey, you know what? I want to do API/me/messages. And now I just connected to another API. But I did not ask the Graph client to use the permissions or the scopes that I require. So when you're going to hit that, you're going to actually get a forbidden. You're not allowed to call into the slash messages. So what you will have to do, you will have to go back up and add the right scope in here. In that case, I would say it's I don't remember exactly.
I think it is mail.read, but let's check.
Actually, here you can go on to a Graph Explorer and look at what are the different permissions. In that case, mail.read will actually get it to me. So I go here, I do mail.read. I can just hit send, save. It should reload my app right here. And now look at this. Now it asks me, I would love to read your mail. Do you allow it? Yes, I do, because my app requires me to do it. You click accept. Now it prints. And if we're lucky, we are lucky. Sorry for the big, let me just zoom into the console here. You see, I just printed all of my messages
Cool.
directly in the console here. So with just changing from one to the other, always remember to add the scopes though, but it's really, really easy to go from one to the other.
Okay, so getting different data sets is literally copy paste, changing the API and adding the new permission you require, because beforehand it was only asking for calendar. Now to read the email, we need email. If you want to read the Teams chat, then you will need the required permission for that. You can always go back to the Graph Explorer and check which API requires what sort of permissions. But that was an awesome demo.
Exactly. Thanks. Even though it's not necessarily very sexy from the UI perspective, it's still very useful. So let me show you also, to give you a little bit of inspiration of what you could do with that. Now that you know how to create your client, you know how to create your Graph SDK, how to call into Graph, let's look at something that looks a little bit better. I pretend that I'm a designer a little bit, and I can make stuff that looks good. So the first demo I want to show is the meetings for today. So now let me use first the sign-in experience that lives right here. I'm going to sign in. And now you're going to see this way better experience, the same capabilities we had earlier, but you're going to see that you're going to have a little bit of asynchronous capabilities that are coming in. For example, at 11 today, I have a quick huddle for the Project Falcon. Well, in here, I can find the participants, the same participants I had earlier, but now I have it in a way that I see their pictures. A lot more exciting. But now look at this. I can also see the different details of that person. For example, their contact, who they're reporting to, the emails that I've been sharing with that person. All of this by using different endpoints in Microsoft Graph and a set of defined permissions. And I can go on and look, for example, at the structure of the organization, look at the emails, look at the files we have together, look at Megan's skills and languages. All of these capabilities are native to Microsoft Graph and are really, really useful. So when you think about this, think about integrating that, for instance, in different types of applications. In a SaaS where you want to book something and you want to make sure that you're available at 2 p.m. today. Maybe you want to have a quick look at your calendar, not have to jump on between Outlook or Teams and your app. You want to have it integrated in there. So that's a really, really interesting scenario. It's simple. It's very limited, right? We're not adding crazy capabilities to it, but we're very specific on the task. And I think it really drives the value of how JavaScript can really kind of help you discover the data that lives in Microsoft 365. So that demo is fairly simple, right? Let's go on and look at some of the capabilities of Microsoft Graph that are a little bit behind just getting raw data. Let's use the intelligence of Microsoft Graph, and let's use the My Network demo right here. Again, I'm going to go on and I'm going to sign in. I logged everything out before the beginning of the call, so that's why I need to sign in everywhere. So here, extremely interesting. Look at this. First of all, you see that this is my network. But what does this exactly mean? There is an endpoint on Microsoft Graph, and let me go to the Graph Explorer just to show you the data that lives here. It's /me/. people. What does that, actually, let me go and show you the response preview. What is exactly this endpoint? What does this provide? Well, it provides intelligence. This is not a who are reporting to you, or this is not necessarily your immediate team or classroom that you work with. This is basically based on the interactions that you have with people in Microsoft Graph. So for instance, I work closely with Aicha in my day-to-day work. I'm not in the same team as Aicha. Actually, we're very, very, very in two different organizations, but we work very closely. But Aicha would be part of my /me/people because we have common grounds. We are working on the same documents, we're chatting, we're sending emails together. And all of these signals will create a top 10 of the people that I work with. So that's exactly what my network here is. It's the people that I work the most closely with. In that case, Megan, Adel, Alex, Lydia, and all the rest of the folks. This is extremely useful when you want to go back to a specific task. I want to go back with Adele, and I know that Adele has maybe files shared with me that we work together. I can go on, click on that file. Or Lydia has, in that case, has an email. What is the email that she sent me earlier? Oh, it's this one, the social media campaign email. And by this type of experience, you can use it. Another great experience, we're going to see it later, is think about how many times as developers are we getting asked to build something like a people picker, something to be able to select people. Well, why wouldn't we give the users a series of their top people, their very close people to start with, and then allow search and allow different capabilities. And that's exactly what this type of API can help you build in the future with this.
That's very interesting step. So can we say that Graph does not only give you access to the pure data, but also it provides some data intelligence that you can access by just calling the related API. And then you're good to go. You don't have to process the data to understand who am I working day-to-day basis, or which files, let's say, I use day-to-day basis, but then intelligence you get in the graph, you can access by just calling one single API, like for example, people. It's a really great example.
That's exactly the case. And not only it provides that raw data, that intelligence, but you can act on that intelligence, right? You can really play with the data that you're getting back and make it even more actionable for your users based on the use case that you want to showcase. So think about if you're building a service desk app or a ticket handling app. Well, these type of apps might be a great example to do that. A good example is, for example, an org chart. An org chart, you want to build an org chart. We have actually built one here. Like, look at that. This is all built on Graph.
It's actually one of the questions in the chat said.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
And here, look at this. Like, for example, I have an org chart here. It's going from Patty, then we have the director and Megan, and then afterwards myself and my other colleagues. But also Megan works with, and here we're leveraging her own /people to see who is she working with also. So it's not only an intelligent capability, but it helps you to build structure, but also have intelligence around the org chart. Definitely there, and you could absolutely build an org chart with the data that lives in Microsoft Graph, especially around all the structure of the organization and who reports to whom. Let me show you another example that I think is also very, very useful. Let's call it my productivity hub. So when I sign in, let's say I'm, okay, cool, I have my meetings for today, I have my network, but these are kind of two tabs, right? Maybe you want to build an app that is a little bit more to the point. You want to have multiple things at your eyesight. And here, let me just zoom out a little bit so my design skills show up. On the left side, I have all of my events for the next couple of days, right? I have all of these events, but here, look at that. I have my tasks. So now I'm playing with another endpoint, the tasks endpoint where I can go add here. Let's say I'm going to do a one-on-one with Aicha, and let's say we're going to have it tomorrow. So tomorrow is 11:08. I'm going to add it, and now I have it as part of my list of to-dos. And not only it shows up in here, but it also shows up in Microsoft To-Do, right? It's not, this is not data that is just for the web. It actually shows up in the experiences around Microsoft 365. Same thing with my files. Oh, that's a beautiful typo that I made right there. My FCD files, well, let's call it my files in that case, where this is my OneDrive. Maybe I want to go back to my OneDrive and see some of these files. I want to show more items, and I can see all the different files that are in there. Maybe when I click on one of them, I want to see the file, or I want to be redirected to where the file is. I can do whatever I want. But these are all capabilities that are brought by the JavaScript SDK and the power of the data that lives on the client side. So think about how you can just expand the simpler scenarios and go really, really wild. But this here, again, we did a CRUD here. This here I can just say, I'm done with Aicha. We did our one-on-one. That's what we do right now. So you see, I updated, I created, maybe I want to delete the task. I deleted, I got data. Something that I want to show you just to end today's session is some of the capabilities around intelligence. Aicha, when was the last time you tried to book a meeting with 25 different folks and find that one spot that was available for everybody? Well,
especially in different time zones, it's impossible.
Exactly. So Graph has capabilities to help you with this. For example, let me go here and let me sign in. Here we're going to find meeting times. And it's something you can build. So let's go back to this scenario here where I have invite attendees. Look at what's here. What is that data? Again, /me/people, right? Because that's the data around me. So Megan, I want to meet with Adele, and I want to meet with Lee. I want to meet for 55 minutes. How do you know what's the time? So here what we do is we find the available meeting time. And what it does a call to Microsoft Graph and identify when is the next availability for us to meet all together. And in that case, I have 3 different options. I want to meet tomorrow at 11. I select this. I'm going to create meeting with Megan, Adele, and Lee. And I want to meet at the B100 100 coffee shop, because a big coffee drinker. If you've seen me, I've been drinking coffee this entire session. And now I can just click on schedule meeting. And now the meeting is scheduled. And just to prove you that this is not just fun and games, let me reload this productivity hub. And I should be able to find in some place in here, I should find, there is some caching in there. That's why, but that's, or is it too late? Is it later in the week? That's highly possible. What I can show you though is if I go to outlook.office365.com, which is
this find meeting times is another graph endpoint, right? You don't have to call 100 different APIs to get there.
That's the beauty, right? It's a single API where you provide who you want to connect with and what you want to do with that data. So let me go on. Let me open the file here just to give you a little bit of a glimpse of that call here. And let me go right here. Lots of things around getting the right thing, but find meeting time. Look at this. It's one API /me/find meeting times where I basically add a list of attendees. How many candidates do I want to have to be considered a successful meeting? So I want to have at least 3 people available. The meeting duration is, this is a kind of a naming convention we're using on Graph to specify. So basically it's for 55 minutes. I want to return the suggestions and I want a minimum attendee percentage. So basically here it says, you're going to have to give me 100% attendees. So I want everybody to be available. Maybe here I just want to have 50% of them to be available, and we consider it to be a success. So by just calling that Microsoft Graph endpoint, very simple. We're doing a post to the /me/find meeting times. We get the results back, and then we continue and build the UI to enable people to afterwards select and then create with another post to the events endpoint that exists on Graph. All of this with one single SDK that does it all for us. So I think you can really, really go on and see the value. And just to make sure that I am not lying, that we really created this one, here we have tomorrow at 8 a.m. that meeting with Megan, Adele, and Lee coming up. So
Wow.
that's what I wanted to show you today. That's how I wanted to inspire folks to build apps with JavaScript. We use JavaScript today, right? But that could be in Python, in .NET, in PHP, in Java. Very similar capabilities exist in these different SDKs. And I think it's super exciting to do.
Wow, this is really amazing, Seb. All of the demos gave us really great ideas to build up, but we don't want to scare our developers. We have learning materials for the week, and you will get a chance to try out calling Graph with JavaScript, and then you will get calendar events. You will also test out other APIs and understand how things work. And at the end of week 2, maybe you will feel more comfortable building one of those samples. And by reaching end of the challenge, you will be building your own solution anyways. They were super useful. Thanks, Seb, for walking us through. And just as a summary, let me share the landing page and the registration again. You can just go to the landing page right now and start consuming the week 2 learning materials if you want to build something similar what just Seb showed us. And if you didn't register yet, go ahead and register. Don't worry that it's week 2. You can just get started today. And in the GitHub discussions, it's not just me and Samuelis or Seb, the entire Graph team and entire Enter65 advocacy are there to help you the entire challenge throughout November. Don't hesitate to ask your questions. We are waiting your questions. We're excited to hear about you and getting your introductions as well. And this is not just, and we are just getting started. Rabab did the get started part. Seb just showed us how to build apps with Graph live. And next week, we will be just showing us an end-to-end scenario with JavaScript. We will walk you through how to build take a break reminder app by using Graph and JavaScript. And the rest of the weeks throughout November, we have other sessions, Q&A sessions, and we will show you the real life scenarios, how to build apps with Graph as well. And then we just want you to stay tuned and get to know us a little better each week with all the sessions until the end of November. I think most of the questions are covered in the chat. Just want to thank Samuelis, Jaflet, Tom, they were helping in the chat, answering all of your questions. And we're so excited that you're joining in this journey with us. And hopefully we will catch up with you in the GitHub discussions in the rest of the week. Thank you, Seb. Thank you, Samuelis, for joining today's session. And I think we're done for the week. Let's learn in our own free time rest of the week.
Cheers, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.